which leaves us with the conclusion that we not only need not be afraid of skepticism, but we can put its claims to the test and be justified despite its claims.
Hi thinkers! In this video, you will learn the two most important things to remember when you battle skepticism.
Are you ready? Then let's get started. This information on skepticism is critical for you to go further with your two techniques for apologetics. You and I are going to dive deeper into the two techniques you need to know when doing apologetics.
We covered this in the video on our other channel, Mixed Martial Apologetics, or MMA for short. See the card above and be sure you check out the video.
Before we cover these techniques and the relevant information, you need to understand a little bit about skepticism.
What exactly is skepticism? Skepticism is the view that rejects all or some kind of knowledge claims. We need to understand not all skepticism is bad, though the term does carry a negative connotation to most people. Let's get a little history on the subject.
One of the first skeptics, Protagoras, and the sophist philosophers spoke out against the knowledge claims of their philosophical opponents and were skeptical of their claims regarding morality and religion. They did not like the idea that their opponents claimed there were objective moral standards, a debate which still rages today. Hey, let us know what you think about this topic of objective moral standards down in the comment section below. Most philosophers would credit Philo of Elis with being one of the biggest contributors to global skepticism. Diogenes Laertius writes about Philo's teachings, stating that these skeptics overturned all dogmas and made no dogmatic statements themselves, and held no determinate position.
Let's talk about modern skepticism. There are different types of skepticism. There is global or Philonian skepticism, which doubts we can have any knowledge at all. It is by far the most extreme of all skepticism. They accomplish this by arguing for an appeal to an infinite regress of justification. Then there is local skepticism, which comes in many forms. Two examples are metaphysical skepticism, which denies the existence of anything non-physical, and empirical skepticism, which only allows empirical data as evidence for knowledge claims, and is related to both logical positivism and scientism. Last is methodological skepticism. This uses skepticism as a method and was made famous by René Descartes as he tried to find certainty. While none of these are epistemically neutral positions, they can seem virtuous, which can certainly appeal to our sensibilities. The question is, do we have good reason to accept them?
If you watched our recent video on mixed martial apologetics about the two techniques you need to know, then you know they are based on questions about evidence and certainty. Now, these questions revolve around skepticism, particularly empirical and methodological skepticism. This type of skepticism can be problematic. You see, if your interlocutor or opponent only allows for empirical data or requires certainty, then your conversation is done. However, if you understand how to defeat this type of skepticism, you may be able to go much further with the conversation. So what are the techniques to defeat it? Before I tell you, be sure to subscribe and click that bell icon to turn on notifications.
During your debate or conversation, pay attention to your opponent's statements. Their claims need to be consistent within their own logic structure. That is the sum total of everything they believe. But how do we test for this? The answer is simple: livability. As an example, let's take two criteria that the local skeptic will frequently use: empirical data only, and a requirement for absolute certainty. If the skeptic tells you they need some large amount of unobtainable empirical evidence or certainty for God, look to see if they require that sort of evidence for other things in their life. At this point, one might object, well, claims about God are very important and come at a high cost, so they require more evidence, or similar claim. However, there are many things that are of life and death importance that we encounter every day, and the skeptic does not require some large amount of empirical data or certainty. In fact, they might seem as paranoid if they requested it. Here are some examples.
Okay, when flying on an airplane, chances are the skeptic does not ask to see all of the pilot's licenses, or for the safety check information done by the mechanics, or for the maintenance logs of the aircraft. I know some of you might be thinking, well, yes, that's because experts check those things, and you are correct. However, the skeptic would need to check it for themselves. Otherwise, they are relying on testimony, which is not, by its very nature, empirical data. Moreover, there is no way to give certainty about the skeptic's safety on the flight. Second example, when moving to a new town, the skeptic does not check the police and fire department's success record, combing over every officer and fireman's performance reviews. They do not hang out at the fire department to be sure all the gear is properly working or that the water tanks are full on the trucks. They rely on experts to check their equipment. Once again, this would not be empirical. The same is true for hospitals and ambulances. So again, is it livable? Does the skeptic require it themselves, or are they just setting you up for a goal that nobody can reach? Requiring absolute certainty is nevertheless not only unobtainable, but unlivable as well. The second thing to remember when encountering skepticism and trying to test it is that the skeptic's claim needs to be rational. In other words, non-self-defeating. Several forms of skepticism are self-defeating. The empiricist's own criteria rules out the very statement they make when claiming only empirical data counts as evidence for knowledge. The statement itself is a claim about knowledge and is non-empirical, so it fails under the weight of its own requirements. And there are many other versions of this, like only what is testable by science is true. The statement is a truth claim, and it is not testable by science, so it fails under the weight of its own criteria. Now, not all skeptical claims are going to be self-referentially incoherent or self-defeating, so be sure you are testing those. Oh, and by the way, that infinite regress problem has been answered by philosophers in the field of epistemology, as several schools of justification can answer this. And the problem of the criterion posed by Roderick Chisholm, well, he himself posited particularism as an answer. And Connie and Feldman in their book on evidentialism posit applied evidentialism as a solution, which leaves us with the conclusion that we not only need not be afraid of skepticism, but we can put its claims to the test and be justified despite its claims. Well, that's it for now, guys. Hey, we love you, take care, and God bless.